Sony Animations absolutely killed it last year for animation because K-pop Demon Hunter was the phenomenon of last year. It was the talk of the town and was absolutely everywhere. This year, to start things off for animation, we have their film, GOAT. Let's talk about it. And for Sony Animations, ever since Into the Spider-Verse, they have been known for starting this new animation style, showing that you can do a lot more with animation because it's a form of art. It's a form that you can do so much with. You can tell your story through that media of animation that you are doing. And Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, K-pop Demon Hunter, they all have that exact same style to it, because of that form of animation. They're able to tell their own story just through the animation alone. Through the animation, you're able to tell what type of movie that you are in for. So, watching the trailers for GOAT, it was the same realm. The animation still looked as great as ever and matched the vibe of the movie. Well, everything in the trailers is exactly what the movie looks like. The animation looks absolutely fantastic and just matches this version of the movie really well. I'm trying to picture a studio like Disney making this movie. I will mention them later on, but picturing Disney make this movie in their form of animation that they do, still that 3D CGI animation feel, I just feel it doesn't work the same way, because this movie has a very certain style to it that I feel like popped a lot more thanks to this animation. Because the movie is all animals, this form of animation kind of shows that more arts feel. And since this is a basketball sports movie too, I feel like what they do with the animation does look really creative and is used in a way to tell the story even more. There's a lot of stuff that this animation does in this movie that if they try to do it with any other animation style, I just don't think it would have worked the same exact way. This animation style is used to tell the story and drive the story more forward, and this movie proved that even more. And speaking of animation, this is an animated movie, obviously, but the way they film certain shots when they're playing basketball, especially in the final climax of the movie, if I was thinking to myself, if this movie was live action, there was no possible way you could do something as creative as that. Because during the basketball moments, this movie has some really creative shots that it's doing with this animation. Just the way the camera follows the ball around that is almost impossible to do in live action, and looks absolutely stunning in animation just because it's kind of like Into the Spider-Verse, how the animation, how the camera movements all worked in that. We're getting that, but with basketball, and it works extremely well. Now let's talk about the actual story. This is a underdog rookie story, which I love those type of storylines. Top Gun, Cobra Kai, Karate Kid, all these type of underdog stories, I feel like they're generic all the time. We know how the story's gonna play out, but there's just something about those movies that make that element really fun. And this movie has that fun element that makes these underdog stories really fun. Now you might be thinking, oh, underdog story, rookie story, I have seen those millions of times and know how the story is going to play out. True. But this movie has its own unique style to it that makes it very different from all those other movies you have seen. Like I mentioned already, the animation, but also the characters, the animals, all those other elements have this new unique style to it that makes it feel like it's something you have never seen before. Although you have seen the story a million times done before, this time you're more connected to the characters though, because the movie does such a great job at doing that. And when we do get to the sports elements, they are filmed in such a way that makes it so intense, and since you care about these characters so much from what the movie has been setting up, all that stuff that you've seen millions of times before, it all has suspense. And by the time everything wraps up at the end, it feels satisfying. It feels like you did not expect that in a million years. Kind of like Top Gun Maverick. Top Gun Maverick is probably one of the most predictable movies you have ever seen in the past decade, but since that movie is really well made, it doesn't feel like that when actually watching it. That's exactly what GOAT also delivers on. It does not feel like a story you have seen before when watching it, just because the movie is made extraordinarily well. And this movie reminded me a lot of Zootopia, not only because there's animal characters, the entire world is animal related, but also has that fun nature that Zootopia has. These character dynamics that makes Zootopia as fun as it is in the first place. This movie has that, and you get that with a huge sports basketball element all around the film. That's the entire film is that. So if you like Zootopia for what it was, for all the cultures, the world, and nature of Zootopia, that is all in this film. This film very much has the same nature that Zootopia brought, and is such a blast. Although they're made from two completely different studios, they all kind of share the same exact vibe, but also different vibes all at the same time, while being about two completely different things, while also having the same nature of both films. And even proven even more, Sony Animation is the best animated studio of this decade. I have mentioned this countless times in many Sony Animation reviews or rankings, but they are the animation studio for this decade. 1990s, we had Disney. 2000s, we had Pixar. 2010s, you can argue multiple different studios popped then, but 2020s is quite clearly Sony Animations. And this movie even proved that point even more, going as far as having these great gems back to back. Forget Fix exists because that was technically supposed to come out before 2020s, but Across the Spider-Verse, K-Pop Demon Hunters, now Gelt, all back to back. I can't wait to see what the studio does next because they are on an absolute roll right now and cannot be stopped. Now, if I were to dive into problems, I do feel like this movie does feel rushed here and there, just because a lot of these sequences that seem really important feel like dream sequences that would be in any other movie. So I feel like if they just made the movie 20 minutes longer or even 10 minutes longer, it will fix a lot of these different problems. I feel like the movie was trying to rush to certain plot points too quickly. You got the overall feel for the characters, but you are also missing that safe flow factor. It's a bit too rushed, but almost in that just nice runtime label. This is a film you could put on and just have a complete blast with. It could be a film that you're having a bad day, put on and just have a complete fun with, just because of how fast it moves, its pacing. But also at the same time, would it help if the movie was just 10 minutes longer? Yes, it would. And like I said, you've seen this movie before. Although it does have a few things that still makes the movie unique in its own way, at the end of the day, you've seen the story still before, but that doesn't bother me at all, and most likely won't bother you because this movie does feel different enough to be its own thing. So overall, GOAT just proves why Sony Animation is the best animated studio of this decade. This entire decade, they have had gem after gem, and that trend has continued to go on with GOAT. This film delivers on everything that the trailers showed, plus way more. It may feel generic on paper, but this film does do a lot different that makes it stand out with its characters, animation, and just the creative factor around this movie. Go out to the theaters and watch this movie. Many people said that K-Pop Demon Hunter should have been in theaters, so go in theaters because it absolutely delivers on everything that this studio has been delivering on this decade. If you like this video, maybe these ones on the signs you too. Like, subscribe. See you guys next time. Goodbye.